Hi, everybody. This is Hassan Raza from Century 21 Innovative Realty. And today I'll be doing a recording of my online seminar called A Beginner's Guide to Investing in Real Estate. I did this recording or this session last Saturday, and halfway through the presentation, I realized that I wasn't recording this. And I know a lot of you have been asking me for a recording. So I'll be doing this session right now, and we'll be sending it to you guys via a YouTube link later on today so that you can review it again and also share it with those that would find it beneficial. Now, just a heads up, this information is pretty basic, very high level. It's going to be really useful for someone who has a keen desire or aspiration to one day become a real estate investor. You'll learn the fundamentals and basic knowledge of how you can get into this process. And it's also going to be really good for any high school students or even university or college kids that have a desire to want to become an investor in real estate. So if you're an experienced investor in real estate, I think this information might be too basic. However, you're more than welcome to stick around, as it might serve as a good refresher. And also you may want to share it with your kids, your family, or friends as well. Now, given the recent pandemic, my goal is to provide as much content and value as I can to you, the viewers, and really give back and help you learn on how you can become a successful real estate investor. So take this opportunity, this downtime, to really learn, invest in yourself, and research and study as to how you can achieve your goals. And hopefully one of your goals will be to be a real estate investor. Now, normally when I do this session in person, I always ask my audience, and I always tell them the following, right? What if I told you you could earn a 20% return on your investment in just a single year? What if you could earn a 50% return in just 2 years, or 100% return in just 5 years? What if I told you that you could earn significant appreciation by seeing your property values double, triple, or in some cases even quadruple? What if I told you you could earn 5,000, 10,000, or in some cases even 30,000 in monthly income during your retirement? Now, these are all real numbers, and I hope these numbers are exciting you because they are real. It's not impossible, and it's not a case of something being too good to be true. The problem is that we've been conditioned in our minds that this information or these numbers are too good to be true because of all the negative comments that surround us. Some of the negative comments that we're going to be hearing throughout our lives is that real estate is too expensive, for example, or that you'll never be able to buy a house in the city of Toronto. And for those of you that are aware, obviously Toronto does have a higher average price for homes. I constantly hear the following from people, that being a landlord is too big of a headache. I don't want to be dealing with managing tenants, and what if my tenants don't pay on time? Another constant negative comment that I'll continue to get is that the market is going to crash, right? Now, the reason why I'm telling you all this is because these comments usually, enter our minds and they precondition us and we start to believe them. So before you even start to think of how to invest in real estate, I would suggest that you start to have a shift in your mindset, right? Start to think big, think differently. Don't get into the negative comments that people will say, especially if you're young. I know a lot of young people nowadays will hear from their family and friends, oh, that when you're older, when you're going to get married, it's going to be impossible for you to buy a house. Honestly, those are limits that people put on themselves, and there's no reason why you should think that way. It's up to you to think whether a house that's worth $1 million is really too expensive or not. If you really believe that you can one day purchase investment properties or even buy a property for yourselves, you have to actually believe that money cannot get in the way. No matter what the cost, what the price, you should be able to work hard one day and achieve whatever you want to achieve. So remove those limits from your mind, have a shift in your mindset, and stop saying I can't afford to buy and start to say, how can I afford to buy? One of the quotes that I really like to read constantly is, whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. This is by Napoleon Hill in the famous book called Think and Grow Rich. By the way, if any of you have not read that book, I would highly, highly recommend that you read that. before you even start to dabble into investing in real estate. It's really going to lift your mind and spirits and help you put together a game plan and strategy on how to achieve your goals, especially your financial goals. Some affirmations that you can keep saying if people are continually being negative to your dreams. Keep telling yourself that one day I will own my own property. Or if you want to own several properties, keep telling yourself that one day I will own several rental properties. If you say this over and over and over again, your brain will create a pathway. Your subconscious mind will create a pathway for you to think of ideas to help you achieve your goals eventually. Now, what's the real purpose behind investing? Why do we even want to make money? Well, it's pretty simple, right? I mean, you have your material goals. You want to enjoy your life. You want to go on vacation. You want to buy a new car. You want to buy your wife or husband a nice toy or a nice gift. You want to buy your children a nice toy. These are all things that we want to do so that we can enjoy our lives. If you take it one step further, you have your financial freedom goals. So obviously everybody wants to provide for their family, their parents. If you have kids, you want to be able to send your kids into private school. You want to put your kids into after school programs. Overall, you don't want to have to worry about living paycheck to paycheck. You want to be able to be worry-free when it comes to money. And if you take it one step even further, you have your selfless goals. This is now where you're thinking about others. You want to help others out financially. You want to assist the less fortunate. Can you imagine, especially in this pandemic, if you were in a situation that you could be able to help others out financially? Real estate, honestly, it's a way where we can build generational wealth so that in times like these, we're able to help the others that are less fortunate. One of my purposes behind investing, and this is my personal purpose, and you can obviously feel free to use this, is, I want to build wealth in real estate. And my purpose behind investing in real estate is to create and build wealth, not just for ourselves or myself, but also for my family and for my community. Now let's start talking about how you can actually start building wealth in real estate and how it can help you in the future. So there's two main ways of building wealth in real estate. One is property appreciation. So I'll give you the example of my father. He bought his property back in 1998 for $240,000 in Markham. 22 years later, that property today is worth well over $1 million. So it literally quadrupled in the span of over 20 years. Now, there was a property that I was helping a client buy the other day, which was priced at $950,000. I looked at the history of that property, and back in 2008, that same property was worth $450,000. So in just a span of 12 years, that property value doubled. The second way of making money or building wealth in real estate is through rental income. So if you purchase a property and you decide to rent it out, your tenant, will help pay for your mortgage, or your tenant's rent will help cover your mortgage, your property tax, insurance, any other expenses. And if you're left with anything over that, then you're basically making positive cash flow. There are people that do make $100, $200, even $1,000 a month positive cash flow because their tenant's rent helps pay off your expenses. And at the end of the day, they're also left with some positive cash after all expenses are paid for. Now, how can building wealth in real estate help you in the future? Well, you can build equity in your home and leverage. I'm not going to get too much into this. This is a whole nother seminar. But what a lot of experienced real estate investors will do is that they'll take out the equity in their existing homes and they'll use that equity to fund or purchase other investment properties. The last item here is setting your children up for success, right? So a real estate investment can also be a fund for your kids' college tuition. I know some people who have bought investments solely for the purpose so that they can use it to pay for the children's college, almost like RESP in a way, but a different method. You can also one day hand off a property to your son or daughter so that they can use it for their own investment purposes, or they can use it and sell it and use that money for their own down payment when they have a family or when they're looking to buy a home. So real estate really helps you with so many options to help you and your family, your community, and yourself as well. Now, I want to go over a few real life examples here, some real estate investment scenarios. And these are properties that I personally invested in or help my clients invest in. And I want to show you how property values appreciate and how you can really make a nice return on investment after you invest. Here's a good example of a property that I personally purchased back in 2017. We paid $437,000. Down payment was about $87,000, 20% of the value. Now, in just 2 years, this property went up by 12.2% in value. So I bought it for $437,000. Today, if I want to sell this property, I could probably sell it for about $490,000. So that's about a $53,000 gain in just two years approximately. I'm going to show you some numbers here. Now, real estate in Toronto, if you look back from the 1930s, we've seen an appreciation of 5% year over year on average, with fluctuations in between. Now, I'm projecting a 5% appreciation year over year to continue. So let's add that and see this chart over here. So if the property was purchased for $437,000, if we add a 5% appreciation in year 2, that property will now be worth $458,850. In year 3, although we know the property is really worth $490, for the purpose of this example, I'm going to use a 5% appreciation rate. In year 3, this property is worth $482,000. In year 4, the property is now worth $506,000. In year 5, the property is now worth $531,000. That means in a total of 5 years, my total appreciation on this property was approximately $94,000. Now let's say I decide to hold on to this property for another 5 years. In year 10, if this property continues to appreciate at a rate of 5% year over year, in year 10, the property value should be worth approximately $678,000. That means in 10 years, my total appreciation would have been $203,000 approximately. Now let's say I hold it for 15 years. At a 5% appreciation rate year over year, the property should now be worth $865,000. My total appreciation would have been $342,000. Now let's take it further all the way back to year 25. Let's say I hold this property for full 25 years. At a rate of 5% year over year appreciation, this property in 25 years should be worth approximately $1.4 million. My total appreciation in 25 years should be approximately $746,000. Now, these are phenomenal numbers on a yearly basis. And what I would tell you is that this is just one property. What if you had more than one property? What if you had multiple properties and they all appreciated and they all had a significant gain in value and appreciation? I mean, you're talking about some serious wealth generation here that you can enjoy and give back later on. Now, what could you do with this property now? Well, like I said, you could sell it and enjoy the rest of your retirement after 25 years. You could decide to hand one off property to your children so that they can use it for their investments. You can decide to keep the property. You don't have to sell it. You can live off of the rent in retirement. So let's just say if this property is giving you monthly rental income of $3,000 and this property is paid off, and let's just say you had 5 properties, that's over $150,000 of supplementary income that you're getting just from the rent of this property. That's a really good income aside from your other investments that you may have at that time. Now, I know a lot of you would ask this question: how can a 1-bedroom plus den condo that I purchased, how can it be worth $1.4 million in 25 years? That just seems absurd. And when you think about it, it does seem really exaggerated. But, what I can tell you is that, 20 years ago, condos in downtown Toronto or in North York at one point were worth $150,000. And if you look now, after 25 years, those same properties are well worth over $1 million. Now, why does this happen? Well, there's a few reasons why, right? Land doesn't really expand. You can't expand land, right? So whatever properties or whatever buildings are available in that limited space, right, they'll continue to grow in appreciation as long as the population continues to grow, and as long as the economy of that city or that country is doing well. Now, if you compare our city, the city of Toronto, to cities like Bombay, New York, London, Paris, if you look at the prices over there for their downtown regions or their popular cities, they're actually still higher than Toronto. So we actually have some room to grow if you think about it. So don't feel like, this is absurd. It's truly possible. Real estate always appreciates in the long run. Now, let's just say, for example, the property doesn't appreciate to 1.4 million. Let's say it appreciates to even $750,000. That's still a pretty good appreciation. You have somebody else paying off your rent, paying off your mortgage, and you're still gaining a good appreciation year over year. Worst case scenario, let's just say your property value does not go up at all, right? Worst case scenario. At least now you have a paid off property, the tenant paid off your mortgage throughout the years, and now you have cash flow coming in on a monthly basis from your rental income. So in this example, I showed you the appreciation year over year, along with the total appreciation and gain that you have earned in 25 years. Now, I want to show you what your actual return on investment is when you invest in a property. Now, when I bought this property, I want you to understand that I didn't really pay $437,000. I actually only put in an investment of $87,400. Now, where did this number come from? Well, this is the 20% down payment that I put to purchase the property. And 80% of the property I had it financed through a lender or a bank. Now, if I just take my personal investment and I look at my ROI in 2 years, the gain on the property was $53,000. This is calculated by subtracting the current estimated value of $490,000, right, minus the purchase price, which is $437,000, which is my gain was $53,000. Now, if I look at my ROI in just 2 years, my ROI was actually 61% because I only put in $87,400. I didn't buy it for $437,000. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know where else you can get this kind of return. And this is what I mean when I say real estate builds wealth and generational wealth, because you can put in a 20% down payment and you basically use the bank's money or the lender's money to make even more money and help with your appreciation. Now, I know that you might be asking, what about, taxes? What about closing fees? What about repairs and maintenance? Yes, over the years, you are going to have repairs and maintenance in the property. Your air conditioner might break down, your furnace might break down. You're going to have to replace the roof. You have to do some renovations. Yes, those are all legitimate costs. And you're going to have to pay taxes on your gains as well. But let's just say, let's be very conservative. Let's say that we subtract this number by half or less than half. Let's say 25,000 is your gain. Now, that's a still 29% increase in ROI, return on, which is still really good. And if I were to ask you, if you could get a $25,000 increase in your salary in a single year, would you take it? I mean, I would take it. I know you would take it as well. And what would that do to your financial life? It would really be a game changer. So you have to look at the actual initial value of investment, not the purchase price, and use this number to calculate your return on investment year over year. I hope that made sense. Now, I want to talk to you about a second example. I'm not going to go too much in depth for this one, but I just want to show you what a client of mine did in Kingston. So this is a property in Kingston, Ontario. It's a beautiful property, detached, 3 bedrooms, 3 washrooms with a finished basement. This property purchase price was $450,000. The down payment was $90,000, 20%. The mortgage amount was $360,000. Now, the property was bought for $450,000 in just 6 months. the estimated value today is $472,500, which means that there was a 5% increase in value since last year, and really since 6 months ago when we purchased it. Now, if you go through the numbers for Kingston, you know, again, in year one, the house value was $450,000. In year 5, the appreciation was should be $547,000, which means that my total gain or appreciation, sorry, the value for the home was $547,000. The total appreciation in 5 years was $97,000. Now, again, my initial investment was $90,000. It wasn't the purchase price of $450,000 because I financed 80% of the value. In 5 years, my gain was $107,749. That means my return on investment in 5 years was 120%. Again, these are phenomenal numbers, and these are truly, truly attainable in real estate. Now, let's go on to the next example here. This is a property in London, Ontario. This is a student rental worth $624,900. This property is interesting because this you can rent out each room for $675, right? So your rental income is $3,625. Your mortgage would have been $1,969. Property management is $110. Property tax is $236. Your insurance is $100. Your utilities are $350. That means your net income after all expenses paid was $859 per month, positive cash flow. On an annual basis, your net income would have been $10,000 approximately, positive cash flow. Now, that was an example of a property that cash flows, but you might be asking, you know, what if my property doesn't produce a positive cash flow on a monthly basis? So the first 2 examples that I showed you about Markham and Kingston, you know, on a monthly basis, those properties likely will not produce a positive cash flow because the rent that the tenant will be giving you is not going to be covering all of your expenses. However, you know, if you look at it from a long-term perspective, right, the long-term growth will far outweigh the monthly cost or the monthly investment you're putting in. So for example, the Markham property that I purchased, I'm probably going to have to put on a monthly basis about $250 per month out of my pocket. However, I know that in 5 years or 10 years, you know, that $250 per month that I'm putting is not equivalent because the gain I'm earning over the next 5, 10, 15 years will be a lot more than what I'm putting into the property. So I just consider that as a cost of investment. Now, the information in this slide I got from another real estate website called Real Estate Renegades, and they're affiliated with Real Estate Rockstars. They're a really, really good company that helps people find good investment properties in Ontario. And this is what they said on their website, is that the middle class will focus on short time frames for analysis and to make decisions. The wealthy look at the big picture and use a longer time frame. They'll look at investments in 10-year periods at least. The middle class will look at investments on a monthly basis and panic every day. So when we're investing in real estate, you have to look at it from a long-term perspective. Don't look at it from a short-term perspective. Yes, you might have money coming out of your pocket, but look at it from a long-term perspective, and you'll see that the numbers I showed you in the previous slide on the Excel spreadsheet show that your appreciation is tenfold more than what you're putting on a monthly basis. Now, if you're still uncomfortable with a negative cash flow, then you can go ahead and purchase properties like the London example that I showed you right over here, where you know you can still earn rental income that will cover all of your expenses, and you'll still come out with a positive cash flow. Now, sometimes these types of properties, they don't appreciate as fast as the ones that I showed you earlier. However, it depends on what your investment style is. Some people like to have positive cash flow on a yearly basis, and some people like to have that speculative appreciation in properties. So it all depends as to what you're comfortable with, but both options are readily available. Now, this is a very important slide. I want to talk about what to consider when investing in properties. Now, a lot of people that I speak to, they overanalyze the process, and they'll look at charts and numbers for 30 different returns and 30 different properties, and they'll calculate all types of return on investment formulas, and it just drives me crazy because it leads to indecision and it confuses the heck out of people. What I would advise is that when you're looking at buying an investment property, look at 3 markets that you like the most. Okay, invest in what you know, in what you're comfortable with. Don't get caught up in the numbers, it'll overwhelm you. The first thing you want to consider, obviously, is what market is in your budget. So for example, if you have a budget of $400,000, look for an area that will serve that budget. What I like to do is when I invest in properties, I like to study the population growth, right? Is the population in this city, in this area growing? If it's growing, that's a good thing because that means the demand will go up for properties in this area. What I also look at is the market. What is the market known for? Is there something special about this market that in the future will catch on, will lead to appreciation? When I look at numbers, yes, I told you don't overwhelm yourself with numbers, but I like to keep it simple. I only look at sales activity and average price in the last 5 years. That's what I look at to see, okay, is average price going up on a yearly basis? And if it is, that might be an indication of a good investment. What I also look for are schools, transit, amenities nearby. These are all key indicators that will help drive a price and demand and rent. So for example, the condo that I bought in Markham, that's an excellent location because it's very close to public transit. There's a brand new school coming nearby. There's a hospital that's walking distance. There's the Highway 407 that's like about 2 minutes away. So these are key indicators that will help me identify that one day in the future, this information will help drive up the price and demand and rent. Now, the best thing is that if you don't know how to do this research on your own, that's not a problem. You can always ask an expert and get their advice. So for example, I do a lot of this information for my clients. Now, you can choose to ask me or choose anybody even if you know a real estate investor that might have information. Talk to them, ask them questions. If you don't want to do this information, ask them, what markets do you suggest? What's the next hotspot? And myself or anybody else that's out there that has experience can help you identify good markets. I want to give you an example of Kingston. Kingston is a fantastic opportunity for investments. And this is what I look for. I go there a lot with my clients, so I'm quite familiar with that neighborhood. What I know about Kingston is that it's got a low vacancy for rentals, right? There's a military base over there. So when I said, what is this market known for? Kingston is actually known for having a military base. That means that a lot of military families live there and they get a stipend from the government, which means that they will be able to pay rent on a monthly basis. So that makes me feel good that I know that stable rent will be coming in for my investment. Kingston also has some good schools. It's known to be a safe city, most pockets. A lot of people come here to retire. The last 5 years show that prices have been going up in this market. There's a lot of jobs over here. It's also home to one of the best schools in Canada called Queen's University, and there's a lot of amenities in the city as well. So it's a growing market. And these are some examples that I look for when I look for an investment property. When it comes to Markham, right? When I said look at 3 markets that you like and invest in what you know and what you're comfortable with, I live in Markham, so I'm extremely comfortable investing in Markham because I know the potential. I can tell you everything about Markham. I know where the GO transits are. I know which schools are doing well over here. One thing about Markham is that there's obviously a lot of GO stations in the area. Schools are high ranking. There's a growing population. It's a safe neighborhood. People want to come here. So that tells me that in the future there is going to be more demand, which will help drive up prices. Now, this is going to be my final slide. Where can I buy property within my budget? Well, if you can't afford to buy in Toronto now, that's not a problem. One day you will be able to purchase in Toronto. But if you drive, 2 hours east or west of Toronto, or even north of Toronto, you will still be able to find some amazing opportunities that will cost less and still rent out. Some cities that I would recommend are Kingston, Barrie, London, Port Hope, Stoney Creek, Hamilton, Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo. These are all amazing cities. What's happening is that as Toronto becomes more and more expensive, these cities that surround Toronto are experiencing a rebounding effect. So people are slowly moving there because they're able to afford homes over there. And what happens is that the price for those areas continue to go up, rent goes up, demand goes up, so making it all a suitable place to invest. You know, Kingston's is a fantastic neighborhood if you're ever interested, and so is Barrie, and so are the other cities I mentioned over here. Last point here, you know, everyone says, or people will say that being a landlord can be difficult. It can only be difficult if you are not organized and don't know how to find the right tenants. Being a landlord is actually quite easy. You know, you have to find the right tenants, so you have to do your due diligence and make sure you do a proper background check on who you're going to be having as your tenants. Now, if you don't want to manage your own properties, that's not a problem. You can hire a property management company to do that for you. A lot of people ask me, well, you know, if I buy a property, let's say, you know, Hamilton, how am I going to manage it? It's too far from me. That's not a problem. You know, you can hire a company to do that for you. And to be honest with you, even if you don't hire a property management company, you know, you can actually create a list of trades workers, repairmen in that area. So if there's an issue anytime, you can always call that person and they can go and fix the situation. You don't have to be at the property 24/7 or every month. You know, you can do a routine inspection on maybe, you know, every quarter, and that's about it. So it's actually not that difficult to manage a property that's out of town. People say that it is, but it really isn't. Trust me, I've got people that manage their own properties from Toronto, and they have properties in Kingston, Barrie, and they're really doing fine because they're able to be well organized and they have the right mindset and the right mind frame. Now, I want to talk a bit more about, you know, how do you come up with a 20% down payment for your investment property? Because I know, you know, you do need capital to invest in properties. And a lot of people that are starting out may not have that money at this time. There are ways on how to acquire capital, but honestly, you know, you have to be patient. It takes time to build capital. You know, if you're young and you're out of school, it may take you a year, 2 years, 3 years to come up with, you know, $80,000, $100,000 in down payment for your first property. But don't get discouraged, because honestly, you know, if you properly save your money, if you learn to live on 60 to 70% of your budget, you know, you can and you will be able to come up with a down payment. You just have to be cognizant and you have to live, you know, a frugal life in the beginning. Maybe you want to rent out a basement instead of renting out an expensive condo. Maybe you want to cut your expenses. You maybe want to move in with your parents. If you live alone, move back with your parents for a couple of years. You know, help save the rent, and whatever you were going to be paying in rent, use that to aggressively save up for your down payment. Now, if you still can't come up with a down payment in time, then you can even consider partnering up with, you know, somebody, you know, a partner or two partners, and that way you can split the expenses in the down payment. But at the same time, you have to understand that you're also splitting the profits as well. You know, so there are ways to come up with down payment, and there's no shortcut. It honestly is just hard work, determination, and you know, self-discipline, aggressive saving styles, and be patient. Even if it takes you 5 years to come up with a down payment, that's not a problem. You're not going to miss the boat. There are so many opportunities out there. I'm telling you, it took me a few years before I could purchase my first property, and if I could do it, I honestly believe you can do it as well. So if you have any questions, please reach out to me at 647-995-7292. I hope this information was helpful to you. And I wish you all the best. I wish you safety and well. And please do take this time to learn, sharpen your skills, invest in yourself, read on whatever you can read on when it comes to investing in real estate, and reach out to me if you have any questions. Take care and have a great day.